G'day friends, welcome to today's video. This is the second last video in the stamp series, and today we're using Charmed. I'm sure we're going to use this little face down here, and we're going to use the DECORA pack to make a bunch of headpieces, or a really interesting headgear, I guess. So we're going to go through and make 5 different versions of them, and I'll show you some examples at the end as well. I'm going to use tags today because it's been a long time. Do you remember when I used to do Tag Tuesday? That just kind of stopped out of nowhere. Thank goodness I never committed to it. Look, we're going to do 5 on these tags. We might color them in. I don't know. I'm feeling very alcohol markery today, so let's just see where my mood takes me. Obviously, you can use any kind of stamps. You can even just use this as a reference to draw from. I don't want you to think that you have to go out and get these stamps. Also, because at this point, some of them have sold out, and the restock around Christmas time is a bit unsure. So you can, by all means, go and check out the Etsy store and see what's still available, but I do have a new stamp set coming out, and it's probably already out, actually. I'm pre-filming this, so by that point next week, I'm assuming it's already going to be out. So maybe that'll be available for you. But I just wanted to say that, by all means, use this as a reference to draw, because these doodles are really, really simple to draw, and I don't mind if you use them as a reference. You do not need to go out and get the stamps to do all of these techniques. I just want to encourage you to kind of think a little differently about how you do things. In the spirit of all transparency, there's actually a tutorial on how to draw this back on my Instagram from like last year, I think, the end of last year, where I break down the steps that I go through to create this particular face. So you really could just go back and look at that tutorial and then just draw your headgear on there if you want to follow along with what we're doing today. But I just wanted to show you that the DECORA set is actually really, really fun to mix and kind of chop and change and do fun different things with. And all you're really gonna need today is your ink pad, your stamps, and I've got a little bit of paper towel that I've just kind of dampened with some water because I'm gonna start with some of the techniques. I'm actually gonna wipe off some of the ink on parts of the stamp and only use part of the stamp. Does that make sense? So yeah, that's all I think you'd need extra, but let's just get into it. First thing I'm gonna do is stamp down my base stamp, this one here, and I'm gonna make a few more than I need, so I'll probably do about 7 or 8, just in case I make a mistake. So now that I've got a bunch of them stamped out, I actually want to start with one that was totally inspired by, like, a direct rip of Mandy Shepherd's. She posted it in the Burke Creative Outlet Facebook group, and I loved it. It looked super fun and very underwatery, mermaidy. I don't know if that was your intention, Mandy, but that's what I took from it. And I really, really loved it. So what I'm going to do is pull off the vine, and I'm going to ink that up. I'm already getting ink everywhere. Now, Mandy had these 2 vines coming off the side of her face, so I'm going to just try and line up that vine just by the wing of the eye, and then I just want to stamp it down. I'm going to do that again on the other side. I loved it because it looked like it had, like, you know, like plaits, like 2 braids, but they were made out of vines, which I thought was super fun. Now I've got this little seashell. I don't know if a lot of people know that this is supposed to be a seashell. I don't know if I was super obvious in the way that I drew this one, but I'm going to ink that up here. I think it's a seashell. It's the way I draw the seashells anyway. And I'm going to stamp that off the side so that it kind of connects to where the vine meets the side of the face. And it's just as simple as that. That is one headpiece. That's what we're doing for this one. That example is finished. It was that easy, and I think it looks super fun. So thank you, Mandy, for all your inspiration. And I definitely just wanted to credit that to Mandy Shepherd in the Facebook group because I directly copied it. I loved it. There are so many in there that I loved, but I thought that one would be a really good one to show you how simple it can be to really change up the effect. You could do these with any of the other stamps too, like you could use the Unbothered set, you could use the face-based set as well, you know, change it up, mix it up. I'm just using this one today because I haven't used it yet and I actually really like this face, and I think it makes for really fun little elements in your journal if you like cut them up and use them as little stickers, or you could make them on sticker paper, you could photocopy them, you could do whatever you want. Right, the next one I'm going to show you is just as simple, and I'm pulling off this little rose here, this little flower, and I'm going to do Frida, and all I'm going to do is ink up that rose and stamp it repeatedly on top. So I'm going to start in the middle, and I think I want 5 flowers because that'll look, it's odd, so it's a bit more pleasing to the eye. I'm just going to stamp them one next to the other, using the top of their head as my guide for where I want to put them. And then I'm going to go in with my pen. Actually, I might go in with my brush pen, which I accidentally left the lid off yesterday, and I think it's dried out. So fingers crossed. For Frida, we're going to connect the unibrow, you know, brow on fleek. Oh, it's dry. I'm gonna have to get another one. This is one of my favorite pens. This is the Zebra Sign pen. It's waterproof and it's a really little hard brush pen. So I might just grab one of these mini Soul pens that I reviewed because they've got the same kind of a hard fiber tip. They're just not waterproof, so I'm going to have to be careful if I decide to color this one in. But I have examples anyway. I'm going to pull this eyebrow off the side of the head just because I think it'll be a bit more interesting and really bring focus to that. And when I color it in, I do put a little bit of facial hair just down here. And there I've got my little Frida, and that's as simple as that one is. I feel like this tutorial is going to be 2 seconds long because they're so easy. So let's just increase the difficulty a little bit then. I'm going to pull off this star. Now this is the star with all the lines in the middle, like the detail, kind of like the 3D star, and the other one's just the double outline star. So what I want to do is ink it up, and I just want to stamp it. You can change the direction of it because the star is wonky, so it'll kind of look different if you stamp it different ways. I want to stamp it off the head because I'm going to make it like a crown headpiece. I'm going to stamp it off the head, and then I've got my other 2-line star here. I'm going to stamp 2 of these on either side. Now when I go to stamp these, because I want them to look a little bit different, I am going to twist it a little bit, and that will look like I kind of drew a little bit of a different star. And for this one, all I want to do is connect where these stars are to the head, so it looks like she's got a crown. I'm just going to connect that to the head, so it looks like there's little wires hanging her star halo off. And I love this one. This one's one of my favorites for Christmas. So that's as simple as that one is. I love that little headpiece. Let's get a touch more difficult. Not too much. For the next one, I'm going to pull off the glasses, the eyeglasses here. And this is a technique that I like to point out because I don't know if sometimes you look at your stamps and you just think, well, I've got the same stamp and it's going to look the same way every single time I stamp it. I want to encourage you to maybe just use half of the stamp or maybe stamp it in an interesting way. So we're going to make a headpiece out of this one today. And which way did I want to use? I think I wanted to use it this way. Doesn't matter, either way works, but this is the way I did my example, so I'm comfortable this way. Now what I'm going to do is take my stamp pad and I'm only going to ink up one of the eyeglasses. So I'm just going to ink it up to that little nose ridge there, and I'm only going to have it half inked. Then when I go to stamp it, I want to line up that little nose bar, and I just want to stamp down like that. And I can connect whatever I missed down here because they're very, very simple lines. And then again, I'm just going to ink up half of it. I'm going to stamp this 3 times. And then whatever I missed, I do just want to connect. Now you can be super precise about this, and you can also use a little post-it note to mask off the top if you want. I don't worry about it because once you color it in, you can't really see it anyway. But this is just a simple little crown that you probably wouldn't know was made from half an eyeglass. So I wanted to encourage you to think about different ways where you could only use half the stamp, where maybe if you tipped it upside down, it would look like something completely different, and really play with how you put them all together. Now the last example I have is the hardest one. But it's actually not that difficult at all. Anyway, so we're going to pull off the antlers here, and what we're going to do is we're only going to ink up half at a time. So I want to start with the smallest amount that I want to ink because I don't want to have to keep cleaning off a lot of ink. So the first thing I'm going to do is just ink up the very, very top of the antler over this side. And I want to connect that down to this part near her eye and her ear. And then I want to wipe that off. This is why I've got my damp cloth, because I don't want any of that ink to transfer. I'm going to wipe that off, and then I'm going to do exactly the same thing with the other side. So just taking my ink pad and carefully just inking that part up there. Now if you find you've gone too far, you can just grab that little cloth and just wipe off the part that you don't want to ink up. So I'm going to put that down here, just off the side like we did before. Give it a little bit of a clean. And now I want to ink up the part that's just underneath this first branch that kind of branches out a little bit. So we're going further down this time. Then I'm going to go off to the side of her head just here and place that antler right there. I'm going to do exactly the same to the other side and inking it up about the same way. Remember that if you do go too far, you can just wipe off some of that ink and then match it up on the other side. Also, if you find that parts have skipped, just take your pen and connect it. No one will ever know that you missed that part. Now you could just use this stamp as it is to stamp the top, but I actually want them to be closer together. So I'm going to ink up half, the whole antler this time, but only one of them. and I'm going to stamp them separately. I don't like to cut up my stamps because I find that they're already small enough as they are and they'll go missing, knowing me. So I am just going to ink them up half at a time. And then I'm going to clean that one off. Clean it off really well, otherwise you're going to have that ghost impression hanging about on your page. And then I'm going to ink up the other side and stamp that one closer as well. And there we go, that's the first part. We have got a little bit more to add just to keep this one super involved and interesting. But you can see here, so what my point is, I like these the way that they are, but sometimes I don't want to do it the same way every single time. So just by doing it in halves, you've actually brought them in and given them a bit of a different look. You could take them even further out, or you could just use one as a branch that goes straight up and looks like a unicorn horn branch. The possibilities are endless, you know? I feel like I say that all the time, but sometimes we need that reminder. I've got the little sprout here, and now I'm just gonna add little sprouts coming off the branches. Like we were doing before, I'm going to wipe off some of the ink that's on this stamp. So if I ink up the whole stamp, but I only want the leaves, I'm just gonna wipe the stem off. And that way when I go to put it down, or I'm gonna actually wipe off one of the leaves as well. So I've only got one leaf left. And then I'm just going to stamp that one leaf there. You can see if you look closely, there's a bit of a ghost impression there because I didn't wipe it off clean enough. Again, that's not going to bother me, I'm not going to lose sleep over it, but just in case you are the kind of person that would be irritated by that, just be very, very mindful of how you're stamping. Alright, I have stamped pretty much on every branch that comes off. I think I have, except for this little one down here because I don't want to get too fussy. And I put the flower back on my acrylic block, and I want to stamp one flower just off here. So she's got a little flower growing off there. And that's as much as that one is too. So we're actually finished our examples. I'm going to lay them all out here just so you can see. The first one we started with over here. Then we went to Frida. Look how inky my hands are, and there's just fingerprints everywhere at this point. But guess how much I'm not bothered by it. I have a care factor of absolutely 0. There we go, we've got our examples here, and I actually do think I want to colour them in because I really do like these, and I've coloured in a few before. I'll show you in the examples. And they are actually kind of fun to colour in. So let me just speed through the colouring process for you. I'm going to use some alcohol-based markers to get a really nice smooth blend. I have used watercolour on these tags before, but these particular tags don't take watercolour like the manila tags I was using before when I first started my Tag Tuesday journey. So I don't like to use watercolour on this specific type. I don't know what the difference is, to be honest. Like, I didn't know manila cardstocks could be different between companies, but apparently they are. So I'll let you decide what you want to colour them in with. You could use pens as well. I'm such a big advocate for using what you have. I don't really think you need a lot more because I've seen most of your stashes and you're pretty well stocked. So, so I'm not going to go and recommend that you need to buy everything every single time I make a video. I do just want you to use what you've got and use what you love, because chances are you've already purchased it already. That's why you love it. So, you know, colour in your favourite medium. I'll speed through it and then we'll come back for some examples. I just want to jump in here with a quick tip. Now, if you notice, a lot of the time when I'm creating something, I will probably just create it on paper and then I'll cut it out and stick it into my journals. Because sometimes I don't want to fully commit to something in a journal, or if especially I'm using alcohol markers and they bleed through, I don't want to deal with that drama. So what I wanted to share with you is that if you're struggling to make those pages kind of blend together, or you just don't like cutting things out because you don't want to be fussy about it, one super simple trick that I've been doing for ages, and I can't even tell you where I picked it up, but it's kind of, I guess I got the idea from Diane Reevely. When she would cut out her images, she would cut them out with a small halo so that she didn't have to worry about super fussy cutting. And so I thought, well, what if I just drew the color in before I cut the halo out? Then I wouldn't have to really get close to anything at all. So I've just been drawing little colorful halos around, and sometimes I'll choose a matching color, sometimes I'll choose something that's completely contrasting to the image that I already drew. Yellow is opposite on the color wheel to purple, so it kind of makes it pop a little bit more. This is a bit darker than I hoped it would be, but it's not gonna worry me. And you can see that my alcohol marker is picking up some of that ink that hasn't fully dried, so be patient if you want nice results. I don't really care. But yeah, I'm going to color in a little halo around it, and then when I go to not so fussy cut it, I can just use the halo to cut in that area and just go very, very loose around it. That way when I go to stick it in, I'm not dealing with a white background. It kind of looks like it's meant to be yellow around it, and I just feel like it's easier to slot them in your journal that way. Instead of, you could just cut it out white, and I've done that before a lot of times too, especially if I want to add something to a certain page, and I cut the halo out white, and then I will paint in or draw in the color that's already on the page and kind of blend it in that way. But if you're just making little ephemera pieces just to have on hand and you know, pull out at will, and you don't really have any special plans for them, maybe just try coloring in a little halo around them. And see, you can even get closer if you want. I get fussy sometimes, and I do like to get close, but my point is that if you just draw a colorful halo around it, I think you'll find that it's easier to grab this and put it in your journal than it is to grab one that's just got this little white halo around it. Because a lot of the times the journal spreads we're adding them to aren't fully white backgrounds, and you know, things start to stick out, and you start to notice, your eyes start to go and look for the cutting areas that you've cut out. But I feel like if it is colored, you could still just cut it out and then color it afterwards. But for me, I find it a lot easier just to pre-color a halo in there and then cut it out. So just a little tip for you. You don't have to do it, but something that I like to do and I thought I'd share. Okay, so we've got our examples here. I've done the little halo around a few of them, and I've cut those out so they're ready to go into books. And yeah, so these were the ones we did today, and I want to pull out a few more. So here are some other ones that I put together. This is obviously the same as this, and you can see that just coloring them in different ways is super fun. You could put those two together in a journal spread if you want, or you can do whatever you want, basically. I've colored these are two exactly the same examples, and even this one over here, I've got one here. This is what happens when you don't color in the halo around it. I feel like I'd be more inclined to pick this up and put it in my journal than I would be to pick this up and put it in my journal. I would much rather pick this up than this up, and purely for the fact that I see all this white, when I tried to put it on a pattern background or something, that's just going to be a mess for me to try and get into. So that is the reason why I do draw these colorful halos around it, when I just want to make little bits and pieces for my journal. I'll just show you another example here. Like, I've done this, and this has also got like a green halo around it, because I just didn't want to, I don't know, I find it so much easier to add into my journal like that than totally fussy cutting it out. Even if it is easy to fussy cut out, sometimes I just like the halo. And here's one I prepared earlier. So this is actually, they're all done on one page, and I've done a bit of a watercolor background and just colored them in with some Copic markers, some pens, some pencils, a bit of mixed media going on here, but I wanted to put the background in just to have something fun and colorful to look at. It's that rainbow paddle pop kind of a background. And they're exactly the same. So if I put these here, all like this, you can see that that's all the same example here. You've got a few Fridas here, her and her, and then I've got Mandy Shepherd's design over here as well. So again, thank you, Mandy. Total credit goes to Mandy for this particular layout, and everything else, I think it's just going to be fun for you to play with. So grab your pencils out if you don't have the stamps, just try drawing a bunch of head pieces and using references that are a little bit different to what you might typically use. Like, not every headpiece has to be a hat, you know what I mean? It could be kind of anything. I love to draw anything on the head. Do you remember when I swatched out those Jane Davenport neutrals palette and I put the fruits on top of their head because I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do with the swatch, so I drew the fashion faces and I put the fruits on top of their head. Headpieces for me are life. I love it, and I just love how fun it is to add anything, all these little decorative elements that don't have to mean anything specific. So I encourage you to get out whatever you need to get out to play with it, and I hope you're inspired by this. I got one more tutorial where we go through how to create a specific piece that I've already created. I hope you enjoy that. There's also some playlists that I've been making. So I've got an Inktober playlist, a Halloween playlist, and I've got an Our Stamp Series playlist. So if you just want to play these back in a you know, and not have to search for them every single time, just go and click on that Stamp Series playlist, and that'll have all the videos as a part of this series in there. If you ever need to come back and reference it, you might just want to check out that playlist. So that's enough from me. Can't wait to see what you get up to. And until next time, bye.